Hi there. I'm Elliot Monroe, I'm 20 years old, and I'm in my third year as a biology student at Carver University. I'm the kind of guy who has way too many folders on his desktop labeled final_thi_zone.pdf. Listens to medical podcasts for fun, and drinks iced coffee even in winter. My older sister, Claire, is 27, a labor and delivery nurse, and currently waddling through the final trimester of her pregnancy like a stubborn penguin. Her words, not mine. We're close. Like, actually close. We grew up sharing inside jokes, gross out science facts, and a love for sarcasm that could wound. Anyway, Claire and her husband, Mark, have been in full-blown baby mode lately. They've painted the nursery, argued over bottle sterilizers, and had 3 versions of a baby registry. But despite all that preparation, the one thing they couldn't figure out? The baby's name. For months, Claire kept saying, "It has to be perfect." And every time someone suggested something remotely normal, Emma, Hazel, Olivia, she'd wrinkle her nose like she just smelled expired milk. She wanted something unique. Ethereal. "A name that feels like starlight on a still lake," she said once. Which was very poetic, but also kind of terrifying. So, because I'm a supportive little brother and because my sense of humor is maybe a little broken, I decided to go above and beyond with her baby shower gift. I bought her the most expensive item on her registry, a sleek, modern $900 crib that looks like a piece of Scandinavian art. But that wasn't all. Inside the gift box, I tucked in something extra, a printed list titled, "Enchanting Girl Names You've Probably Never Heard." It was, of course, a joke. A twisted, scientifically tinged joke. The names included things like Salmonella, Chlamydia, Viagra, and Malassezia. If you're not familiar, Malassezia is a genus of fungus that causes skin conditions like dandruff and tinea versicolor. It also, when you forget what it means, kinda sounds like a mythical woodland fairy. Claire laughed. Hard. She even read some of them out loud to our parents between sips of punch, giggling like it was the funniest thing I'd done in years. Fast forward 2 weeks. I get a call from Claire, her voice breathless, giddy. "We've picked a name," she said. "It's Malassezia." At first, I thought she was kidding. She wasn't. I told her, gently at first, then more directly, that this name might not age well. I reminded her what Malassezia actually is. She shrugged. "I know," she said. "But it's beautiful. It sounds magical." I argued. I suggested similar names, Mallory, Azalea, even Anastasia. Still unique, still pretty, and significantly less itchy. But she shoved me down. Hard. "You're not her parent, Elliot," she snapped. "It's not your decision. I think it's the hormones talking. I hope it is. Because otherwise, my future niece is about to be named after a fungal infection we both suffer from, and I'm just not ready to smile and say, 'Welcome to the world, baby Malassezia.'" Claire gave birth 3 weeks early. It caught everyone off guard. The crib I ordered hadn't even been fully assembled yet. Her hospital bag was still half-packed when she went into labor. But despite the chaos, baby and mother came through healthy and safe. The entire family let out a collective breath we didn't know we were holding. Malassezia Monroe entered the world at 6 pounds, 11 ounces. I didn't say anything when I first saw the name typed on the little white hospital bassinet card. It was right there in black ink, official and permanent. No middle name. No nickname. Just Malassezia. I stared at it longer than I should have, quietly stunned that Claire had actually gone through with it. A week later, I was at their house helping with some errands and bringing over groceries. Claire was exhausted but glowing in that new mother haze, cradling the baby with that sleepy, adoring smile that made it clear this name wasn't going anywhere. I tried not to look at the monogrammed blanket on the couch. I tried not to think about fungal rashes or yeast cells every time the baby burbled. It wasn't until I was in the living room, stacking clean diapers, that Mark finally brought it up. He didn't know. He had no idea what the name meant. He just thought Claire had found something beautiful and unique, and he liked how it sounded. He told me this in a calm, steady tone, the way someone explains how they picked a paint color for a nursery wall. And then he asked, almost offhandedly, why I looked so uncomfortable every time he said the name aloud. That was the moment I had to choose, stay quiet and complicit, or tell him the truth. I chose honesty. What followed wasn't a loud explosion, it was quieter than that, more surgical. Mark listened, at first with a curious kind of patience. Then, slowly, his jaw tightened. His eyebrows furrowed. The shift was subtle, but unmistakable. When I explained what malassezia actually referred to, how it was listed on my joke list, how both Claire and I had suffered from it since childhood, he went very still. For a second, I thought he might laugh it off. He didn't. Instead, he grew cold. I could see the calculations happening in his head, the spiraling realization that he had named his daughter after a skin fungus and didn't even know it. That his brother-in-law had known all along and hadn't stopped it. That his wife hadn't told him the full story. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. By the time I left, the air between us had shifted. There was tension now, quiet and dense like humidity before a thunderstorm. I didn't mean to stir anything up, not really. I just couldn't keep the truth under wraps, not when it was printed on baby shower cards, engraved on a crib, stitched into a tiny onesie. Claire called me the next day. I didn't answer. I needed space. I had a feeling she wasn't calling to thank me. Because while baby malassezia was now officially part of our lives, so was the rift I hadn't meant to cause, but maybe couldn't have avoided. Claire didn't leave a voicemail. She didn't text. Just a single missed call, timestamped late at night, after what must have been a long feeding session or another round of bouncing the baby around the living room. I stared at the screen for a full minute, thumb hovering over "Call back," but I didn't press it. The silence between us stretched for a full week. And it was deafening. My parents started noticing something was off. At dinner, my mom asked how Claire and the baby were doing. I shrugged and said they were probably busy. My dad nodded like that made sense, but my mom tilted her head slightly. Mothers always know when something isn't quite right. I avoided bringing up the name. I avoided bringing up the baby. I avoided a lot of things. The truth was, the moment Mark walked out of that room after I told him about malassezia, the ground had shifted. It wasn't just a naming issue anymore. It became a question of trust, of who was allowed to speak truth in the face of sentimentality, and who got to decide what mattered in a family. Claire was angry. Not in a screaming, plate-throwing kind of way, but in that slow, simmering fashion that makes every interaction feel like walking through a minefield. When we finally spoke, by accident, bumping into each other in the parking lot outside our parents' house, she wouldn't look me in the eye. Her smile was polite, thin, the kind of smile you give a stranger at a store, not your little brother who once helped you hide a broken window in middle school. I realized then she hadn't forgiven me, not really. To her, I had crossed a line. Not by making the joke list, but by telling Mark. And maybe she was right. I didn't think Mark confronted her outright. That wasn't his way. But there must have been a conversation, behind closed doors, filled with quiet accusations and awkward pauses. Claire must have had to explain that she knew all along. That she picked the name anyway. That she ignored better suggestions because she was sure no one would ever connect the dots. But someone did. I did. And now the name hung between them like an uninvited guest. I wasn't invited over the next weekend, when our family usually gathers at Claire's place. My mom said she was probably just exhausted, still adjusting to the baby. But I knew. It wasn't about diapers or sleep schedules. It was about damage done, and how deeply it cut. Still, I don't regret what I said. I didn't mean to cause drama. I just couldn't sit on a truth that big, not when it concerned a child who hadn't even taken her first steps. Maybe Claire thought I was trying to embarrass her, or that I didn't respect her decision. But really, I was trying to protect her from the kind of regret that arrives too late, after the name is printed on school forms and birthday cakes. Claire and I had been close all our lives. But now, for the first time, there was real space between us. And I didn't know how to cross it. The first time I held Malacesia, she was wrapped in a yellow swaddle with ducklings on it. Her face was soft, barely the size of my palm, and her tiny chest lifted and fell with these impossibly fragile breaths. I remember thinking how strange it was, holding something so new, so untouched by the world. That memory has been stuck in my head lately, looping. Because now, every time I hear her name, I wince. And every time I think of Claire, there's a wall I didn't build, but can't seem to climb over. 2 weeks passed before we spoke again. It was at our parents' house. A Sunday lunch, roast chicken, salad, Claire's favorite peach tea. The kind of meal we grew up with, the kind where someone always ended up laughing too hard, or choking on mashed potatoes. But this time was different. Claire sat at the opposite end of the table, rocking the stroller gently with one hand, scrolling her phone with the other. Mark wasn't there. He had work stuff. I didn't ask. I kept stealing glances at her, waiting for the usual nudge under the table, the shared smirk whenever Dad made a dad joke. But nothing came. She didn't look at me. Not once. And it hurt in a way I wasn't prepared for. Growing up, Claire was more than just my sister. She was my buffer, my translator, the one who explained the world to me when it got too complicated. She taught me how to talk to girls, how to sneak an extra cookie without getting caught. When I got my first heartbreak, she sat on the porch with me in silence, just letting me cry without asking questions. And now, here we were, avoiding eye contact over green beans. After lunch, I slipped away to the guest room and sat on the bed, not really sure what I was doing. Just trying to breathe, I guess. I heard the door open behind me. Light footsteps. And then, her. She didn't say anything, just sat down at the edge of the bed. For a second, I thought she might break the silence. That she'd joke about how dramatic I was being, or tell me she missed our late-night junk food runs. But the silence stayed. Then she did something unexpected. She placed Malacesia in my arms. I froze. She adjusted the baby's head gently, and without looking at me, stood up and walked out of the room. And just like that, it all came rushing in. The guilt. The love. The helplessness of it all. I stared down at this tiny human, her fist twitching in her sleep, completely unaware of the tension she'd been born into. Her lips puckered slightly, and for a moment, the name didn't matter. Fungal infection or not, this baby was real. And she was loved. I didn't know what Claire was trying to say by handing her to me. Maybe she didn't know either. Maybe it was just her way of showing that she hadn't completely shut the door. Or maybe it was her way of asking me to stop seeing the name and start seeing her daughter. I didn't apologize. Not that day, not the next. Not even when our mom called me and casually mentioned that. Maybe Claire's been a little sensitive lately. With that maternal tone that says I know something's wrong, but I'm not prying unless you make me. The truth was, I wanted to. Or maybe I wanted to want to. But every time the urge crept up, during those slow, dull evenings in my dorm room, when the quiet got too loud and the light from my laptop blurred into a haze, I would replay the moment I told Mark about the name. I would replay the moment Claire turned away from me. And I would feel the sting of being right. Because I was. And I still am. Malacesia is a ridiculous name. A ticking time bomb of Google results and uncomfortable doctor visits. And no matter how soft Claire spoke it, no matter how much love wrapped around it, it wouldn't change what it is. What it means. And yet I can't deny that she says it with something tender in her voice. Something whole. Like the word doesn't belong to microbiology anymore, it belongs to her. But I still didn't apologize. Because I wasn't sorry for what I said. Maybe for how it unfolded. Maybe for how it hurt her. But not for the truth. And I think Claire knew that. Which is why she never asked for an apology. She stopped texting. She stopped tagging me in funny memes like she used to. The gap widened, not explosively, but with quiet inevitability, like water between two tectonic plates. Yet we were never fully severed. There were still signs. A wrapped Tupperware on my doorstep with "Leftovers, smiley face" scribbled on the lid. A book about evolutionary biology left on my bookshelf that I hadn't bought myself. A silent kind of truce, built from old routines, from memories that neither of us could completely throw away. She hadn't forgiven me. But she hadn't abandoned me, either. I sometimes wondered if that's what adulthood was, learning to hold two conflicting things in the same hand. Love and resentment. Pride and guilt. Knowing you've hurt someone, and also knowing you wouldn't have done it differently. I didn't apologize. Because an apology would mean I regretted telling the truth. And I didn't. But I also didn't press her anymore. I didn't send more name suggestions. I didn't share articles or throw more subtle hints. I let her be. I let the name be. Because maybe that was the only olive branch I had left. Silence, not surrender. Weeks went by. I saw baby photos on my parents' fridge. I saw Claire's face soften when she talked about feedings, and sleepless nights, and the way Malacesia smiled when music played. I watched her pour herself into this role, this new identity, and I had to admit, she was brilliant at it. I didn't say sorry, but I started showing up again. And sometimes, that's the closest we can get. Time has a way of softening even the sharpest edges. The silence between Claire and me didn't vanish overnight, but it began to lose some of its weight. I didn't expect grand gestures or sudden forgiveness, just the slow, steady rhythm of presence. I started showing up more at family gatherings, no longer an outsider in the room. I watched Claire as she moved through her new world of motherhood with fierce determination. The tired lines under her eyes were deeper now, but so was the softness in her smile when Malacesia gurgled happily in her arms. At first, I kept my distance. Not out of resentment, but respect. I knew the space she needed. The space I had taken when I challenged her choice. But Malacesia changed that distance. The baby was a small miracle wrapped in yellow blankets and curious eyes. Every time I held her, I felt the fragile weight of a new life, one that deserved protection, even from family disputes. Slowly, those moments grew more frequent. I learned to quiet my thoughts when I was around them, to listen without judgment, even when her name slipped out, soft and sure, from Claire's lips. One afternoon, Claire handed me the baby without a word. I held Malacesia close, feeling the steady heartbeat beneath her tiny chest. In those quiet seconds, I realized that names are only words. What truly matters is the love that fills the spaces between them. I started noticing the little things, how Claire's hand trembled when she was exhausted, how Malacesia's eyes followed the sunlight through the window, how family could still mean more than a name. No apologies were spoken, but trust began to rebuild itself in silence. Through shared meals, small smiles across the room, and the gentle understanding that sometimes love means stepping back and simply being there. The name Malacesia was still unusual, still tinged with awkwardness. But the baby was growing, glowing with life and laughter, making the name hers in ways no dictionary could define. And for the first time in a long while, I felt hope, not that I'd changed her mind, but that maybe, somehow, we were changing together. Months passed, and with each one, Malacesia grew stronger, brighter, more herself. The name that once felt like a thorn in my side had somehow become a quiet thread woven into the fabric of our family story. I still stumbled over the pronunciation sometimes, caught off guard by the ass smack in the middle or the strange scientific echo it carried. But what once felt sharp and strange now felt softer, more familiar. Because a name, after all, is only part of a person. It's the way they look at you, the small fingers that wrap around yours, the way they laugh without a care in the world. Claire and I never had the conversation I once wanted. No apologies. No grand acknowledgments. Just a slow, steady rebuilding of trust that didn't need words. Sometimes, I watch her with Malacesia, how her face melts into pure joy when the baby reaches for her, how her voice turns gentle and lilting when she sings lullabies. I see how this name, odd and imperfect, has become the sound of home. And I've realized something important. Love isn't about being right. It's about being present. About choosing connection over conflict, even when it's hard. I don't regret telling Claire my thoughts about the name. I don't regret pushing back, even if it caused distance. Because that's part of what family is, sometimes clashing, sometimes stepping back, but always finding a way forward. In the quiet moments, when Malacesia sleeps peacefully in her crib, I find myself silently thanking the strange, imperfect name she carries. Because it brought us to this place, messy, complicated, but real. This story isn't about a perfect name or a flawless family. It's about the imperfect love that holds us together despite everything. And sometimes that's enough.